This is Paul Levy, author of the book Digital Inferno, and this is the fourth podcast exploring Brexit, not from one particular opinion or another in favour or against, but stepping back from the whole process and trying to take a look at the quality of our thinking and some of the processes of thinking and meaning and intention that are happening behind the scenes that it might be better for us to be aware of. Now, in the last couple of weeks, although it goes back further than that, I've heard a lot of people using the phrase tired of Brexit, have had enough of it, switch off the TV as soon as it's mentioned. And for something as significant as this particular change that's going to go on in the UK, Europe, and affect the whole of the world, that's not a healthy place for anyone to be in, even if it's a justified place, in terms of people saying the reason they're not engaging is it's just making them more tired, more depressed, more flustered. And so they're turning their back on it. The particular thing I'm most interested in is when I look at the processes that took place right back to the referendum, I noticed that various sides, and there was the Leave side, the Remain side, and various other sides to this as well, places in the middle, were all in some way over-communicating and exaggerating and calling things by certain names designed to invoke fear. A fear reaction that would then lead people to make a decision based on fear rather than maybe their usual common sense or instincts. And the process was one of repetition, and it's either using the same words, and no deal has become one, and Brexit itself is another, that said enough times starts to wear us down. And you can imagine water as it crashes against a cliff, eroding something away over time until something is less than it was and can even collapse into the sea. Wearing somebody down has never been a good thing to do. And we've got a kind of romantic notion of that, in the Shakespearean times of romance where somebody just kept trying and didn't take no for an answer, which has become quite a dubious thing in the world of sexual harassment these days. But going back just to the notion of believing that what you have to say or what you want to happen is morally right and that someone is against it, that you don't take no for an answer. And so for a good motive, trying again and again to wear someone down can be part of dialogue. But I do believe what's assumed is that there's a respect there, a good intention, and it always stays on the right side of bullying, of threatening, of trying to manipulate somebody. And so there are conversations that have been recorded, in books, and you can see them happening, on videos where people are debating and discussing and someone will keep trying, and in the end you can see they wear someone down with their argument. But your own instincts will probably tell you there's a healthy side to that still has a certain amount of what has been called by the philosopher Rudolf Steiner moral imagination. And there's different definitions of that, but I like the sense of that meaning that you could imagine the impact of what you say or do on the people or groups that you're doing them to. And you attempt, therefore, not to diminish the other person's freedom. Even if you do use repetition or assertiveness, you still use a form of words that still allows the other person time and free thinking space so that they're not worn down in a way where their freedom to act or think is diminished. And what I'm noticing, particularly in the Brexit debate, and it's happened with politicians, it's happened with the media, it's happened with business leaders, and it's happened with citizens, particularly at the extreme ends of the Leave and the Remain groups, is that they are attempting to wear people down in ways that they just surrender, that they just give in, that they're just so tired that in the end they don't necessarily make the decision they would if they were in more possession of energy, more able to be free, and make the effort to think things through that they normally would. And so we're being worn down, for example, whether you're a Leaver or a Remainer, we're being worn down at the moment by the government themselves and led by Theresa May, constantly coming back with the same deal and polarising the argument, saying it's either the deal or nothing, or no deal, and then building up arguments that keep being repeated, which are pointing out to the disastrous consequences of not actually surrendering to their particular view or wish. Now again, step away from the content and imagining that was happening between friends, that was happening in a relationship, that was happening by a teacher in the classroom, that was happening in any organisation where people finally just give in, submit, simply because of the pressure that they're being put under, the emotions that they're being forced into that are largely negative, the exaggeration they're constantly being presented with that suggests much, much more negative scenarios that might actually never really emerge and things could be better. Wearing people down is a process of diminishing someone's freedom and gaining mastery over them, or getting what you want at the expense of their freedom to really think through what they want. And that can lead to, in the end, quicker decisions. But the point I'd like to make too is that if you try to wear someone down, or a group, in the system that you inhabit, be that a country or an organisation or a family, and then once the person has submitted, and then later has time to wake up and look back over their decision and sees themselves in that act of submission from a point of energy, you tend to get kind of payback time. You tend to get the consequences of that coming to haunt you. So if a bunch of MPs or a bunch of citizens, if they're given a public vote, simply vote in a particular way that they wouldn't normally, simply as an act of submission because they've been worn down, because they're weaker than they would have been, then further down the line, if those people are in freer, more energized positions and have time to reflect back, that's when the anger, that's when the regret, that's when the karma, that's when even the revenge comes back, because they look at you in the eye and realise what you did to them. And suddenly, even if you got what you wanted in politics, they vote for the other side. In families, in friendships, it comes back to haunt you in the form of a challenge to that decision. And quite often the decision you got can be unmade in an even worse way, or that people's commitment to you simply diminishes, their trust in you diminishes. So you get the short-term win, you win the battle, but you lose the war. And that's what worries me most at the moment about the quality of our thinking, that we seem to have got into a norm since the beginning of the referendum itself of using methods, and some of the organisations used PR companies and advertising agencies to wear people down, wear them down to a place where they actually stepped into the opposite camp to what they normally would have done. Now, if you're listening to this indignantly thinking, well, that wasn't me, no one wears me down, I respect you. But at least be open to the possibility that not everyone may be as strong-willed as you. Not everybody is able to bear that pressure. And that's something that we develop as a skill more or less in our life and life experience as well, and through the energy that we can gain from the things that we do. But a lot of people have been worn down. A lot of people are being worn down. There can be lots of reasons why we are. And when the deal comes back, probably to Parliament again and again, possibly, if it does, the danger of people being worn down, so that there's finally a vote in Parliament where 300 to 299 makes the decision, the biggest decision we perhaps will ever make. A bit further down the line, we might just find that the consequences are far worse than actually had we all just taken the risk, respected other people's freedom, really had a value that everybody should be as awake as possible, asking whatever questions that they wanted, having as much objective, truthful information around them. And those that depart from that and don't have the time will do. But I'd suggest a lot of people would engage in that process, and we might just make perhaps initially more tougher conversations and decisions, but in the longer run, we'll all own the decision that we made.